Johann Sebastian Bach is, for me, the greatest composer who has ever lived. There is just no question about it. Now let's consider different aspects of his music and of his character. First, we will talk about Bach the father and Bach the teacher, the pedagogue. Bach had 21 children. Many of them haven't survived, but many of them have, and they were very musical. First and foremost, his two eldest sons, Wilhelm Friedemann Bach and Carl Philipp Emanuel Bach. And Bach thought it would be very important to continue the tradition. The Bach family has always been a very musical family, and he wanted to give material for his children to study, to learn playing the keyboard instruments, and also to give them lessons in composition. Now, those of you who play instruments, not necessarily the piano, let's say the violin or the cello or the oboe or the horn, it will be a very, very long time before you can play Bach. And for us keyboard players, this is a blessing that Bach thought of teaching material. So when you start playing the piano as a child, as a musical child, then immediately after a few months, or let's say after a year, you can start playing the little preludes of Bach. And later you move on to the two-part inventions, then to the three-part inventions, then to the French and English suites, and gradually to the well-tempered clavier, and if you are lucky, you will make it to the Mount Everest, the Kunst der Fuge, the art of fugue. So, like a good teacher, he was thinking progressively, starting with simpler pieces and then gradually getting more and more difficult and more complicated, complex. In the introduction to his Inventions, he writes that this is material for the student to get ready and get acquainted with two voices, and later with three voices, three independent voices. Furthermore, to have an introduction into the art of composition and to develop a good taste. And there is a very beautiful sentence in this introduction: to develop the cantabile way, the cantabile art, the singing way of playing a keyboard instrument. We shouldn't emphasize this enough, because many people consider the piano as a percussion instrument. This is an insult. The piano is a singing instrument. It's never percussive. It's only certain pianists who play it percussively. And if you hit the piano will hit back. Now, obviously, Bach didn't know the modern piano. He was writing for keyboard instruments of his time, first and foremost the Clavichord, which is a single manual little instrument, very beautiful, very delicate. It has a very soft sound, so it can only be played in a small room for the player alone and maybe 2 or 3 listeners. That's it. However, I would encourage each and every pianist to study the clavichord because it has been my best teacher. On the clavichord, you can make a vibrato. It's called in German Bebung. So you play a note and you move your finger vertically and the tone vibrates. Of course, you should not vibrate every single note, also not on a string instrument, but it's a beautiful, expressive device. Now, here is the facsimile edition of the 2- and 3-part Inventions. Bach's wonderful, unique handwriting. The manuscript is here in Berlin, in the Staatsbibliothek, in the National Library, just a few meters from here, from the Pierre Boulez Saal. And if you look at Bach's handwriting, you see these wonderful wavy lines. If you look at a printed edition of the same work, then you see nothing but straight lines, geometrical lines, which are very clinical, very clean, but not expressive. And here you can see the direction of the melodic lines. So once you see this, you will never play straight lines in the music. Let me just go through now, piece by piece, the 2- and 3-part Inventions, just to tell you a few words about each of them. Invention, the word is there, so it's an idea. The first one, everybody knows the first invention like this. That's how I learned it as a child. But since I got to know the manuscript, we can see it that Bach added a 3rd note into the duplets, making it a triplet. And every single time he puts in the 3rd note, so it's not accidental, and we should always follow the composer's final thoughts and final wishes. In these Inventions, Bach is sticking to the easier tonalities, the easier keys. So he's avoiding something like C-sharp major, like he does in the Well-Tempered Clavier, because there are too many accidentals in it. So he's saying to the student that you are not ready for that. Stick to the easier keys. The second invention, C minor. This has a very long idea, which is then imitated by the second voice. Imitation is essential here, and also polyphony, counterpoint. So counterpoint means one note against the other note, one point against the other point. So let me just show you how the imitation happens. So 2 bars later, the lower voice repeats what the upper voice has just said. Character is very important in all music, and nowhere more than in Bach's. When you see his handwriting, it's obvious that there are very, very few instructions. In later music, a composer will give you a tempo indication, allegro or andante or adagio. Nothing here. You have the notes and a few articulation marks, and yet if you are familiar with Bach's music, you will recognize certain dances. Like this is like a little minuet. Because it's a triple meter, and dances are everywhere in Bach's music. Minuets and gavottes and bourrées and sarabandes. We will come to that later. The next one, D minor, again, look at all these semiquavers and the curves and the wavy lines. So to me, this is a very stormy, very tempestuous piece. Then comes E flat major. He moves up a semitone, and this is a very jolly piece of music. Here we have not one but two contrasting ideas. This is the one, and the second one. E major is very unique in the set because it's in a two-part, in a binary form. Both parts are to be repeated. And again, we have two ideas. One is this. In triple time. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And the second one. And they are syncopated, so. We move on to E minor, which is a very beautiful melancholy piece. Tender and melancholy. Now comes another very popular piece. I used to love to play it as a child, and I still love playing it. It's such a joy to play this music. Instead of playing very boring finger exercises and scales and arpeggi and etudes by Czerny, I encourage everybody to play this music because it cleans the mind, the spirit, the heart, and it also gives you the joy of movement, of being alive. F minor is very dark and very somber. Then comes a lively little jig. In triple time, 9/8 time. The next one is very passionate, G minor. Again, the handwriting gives you the character. All these chromatic lines are very passionate and very painful. So he is already giving the children this kind of music, and which is an introduction to his later music. This G minor reminds me of the St. John Passion, the opening choir. Now comes another very dancing piece, A major. A minor is very dark and sad, but not tragic. Now, look at these beautiful lines. Every one of them, this is like a double cadence, like a Doppelschlag. And there is not a single correction in this. This is the cleanest handwriting that there is. I don't understand when he had the time to do this and to write so beautifully. And the final piece in the set is in B minor, which usually is the black key, but here it is a very dancing, a very, very gentle piece of music. And here, Master Bach says, after the two-part inventions, there will be a following set of 15 pieces in 3 parts, which he now calls actually Sinfonia, not invention. So Sinfonia, it's voices that are sounding together. Now, of course, progressively, to play 3 parts is much more difficult than to play 2 parts. Although 2 parts are also difficult. There is nothing easy in life. I mean, and the older we get, the more difficult they become. But we should never give up hope. Now, the tonalities are the same in the 3-part inventions as they were with the 2-part inventions. Let's move on. The first one is based on diatonic scales. The scale and the inversion, the mirror of the theme. So the next piece, C minor, has different materials. The invention is actually this one. And together with that is this second subject. material. And the fourth one is a trill. Let me just show you how they sound together. So it's in triple time, but it's the meter is 12/8, and this could come out of one of the cantatas or even one of the passions, the St. John or the St. Matthew Passion. Now comes a piece in double time in 4/4, a lovely, lively dance. Lamentoso, D minor. This is one of my favorite three-part inventions, the E flat major. It's like a trio sonata. Let's imagine a bassoon and two oboes. The bassoon is the left hand. And above that, the two oboes are playing with wonderful ornaments. So this is a lesson in ornamentation. We can see the small notes that Bach has added. This is called an appoggiatura, a leaning note. So one note is leaning on to the other one, and it's very, very expressive. Therefore, I'm convinced that these pieces were meant for the clavichord, because on the cembalo, on the harpsichord, you cannot execute an appoggiatura in a musical way. When we sing an appoggiatura, tim pa param, tim pa pa, then we sing the second note softer than the first note. And the cembalo, the harpsichord, cannot do it. That's a fact. The next one is a gentle pastoral piece in E major, 9/8 time, triple time. So again, we have the main idea and the inversion. You can see that I have been using this facsimile quite a lot, but I have a few other copies. It's just wonderful to have a copy with you that's like part of your body. You are used to it. So E minor is the key of the opening of the Matthew Passion. And therefore, a a second idea. In semiquavers in 16th notes. Now comes a lovely, like a Brandenburg concerto. Think of the trumpet in the second Brandenburg concerto. So this is like concerto movement. Now the F minor three-part invention is one of the greatest pieces of Bach and of anybody. And it's extraordinary because it only takes about 2 minutes. And yet, this is not music for children. Look at this line. So this is very chromatic, and this is like a passacaglia, or what we call in musical rhetorics, passus duriculus, a difficult passage depicting Christ carrying the cross. And the other motif, the third motif, so together. Twice in this piece, Bach almost quotes his own name, B-A-C-H, except the last note he doesn't pronounce. Deliberately, because it doesn't fit the harmony. But when Bach quotes his own name, it is like when Rembrandt puts his own portrait in a corner of his great painting, The Night Watch. So it's a self-portrait in the middle of these wonderful pieces when he does it, very seldom. Now, to release the tension of the F minor, we have a very light piece now, in 3/4 time, G major. And it has a sense of humor because it starts with a syncopation. Now comes a gentle Siciliano. Another concerto movement, A major. Young people can understand Bach very well because of the dance and because of the rhythm. Like this one, this is called a dactyl. So tam ta ta tam ta ta tam pa pa pam pa pa pam. These meters, they come from Greek language and Greek poetry, dactyls and anapests and iambic rhythms, etc. Now the A minor, very simple, and then comes the second subject, and even a fourth one. The B flat major, the penultimate piece, is very complex, very complicated. So this is the main idea. Second idea. And Bach uses here all the imitation techniques. Let me just show you a little bit. And we have here Engführung in German, a stretta. It's when one voice enters before the previous voice has finished the sentence. So Bach is giving his children more and more difficult lessons, more and more difficult tasks to solve. And the final piece in the three-part Inventions is a B minor, which is very virtuosic. You can see all these flourishes here. So but in Bach's handwriting, I can imagine the waves, like in the ocean. So the waves are never straight, and the music should never be played in a straight way. And here he says finis, yeah? Finita la commedia. But Bach wrote this in 1723, so it's from the middle period of his life. And this music has been with me since my early childhood, and as long as I'm lucky to be alive, I would like to live with it, because it has been a wonderful companion. Thank you for your attention.